welcome back to Beyond the Gate, and we are on episode 7, Hidden Truths. I'm Megan.
And I'm Meg. This is the first episode that we're recording after officially releasing the first 3 episodes of our podcast. Woo. So, we are planners, and we're like 3 episodes ahead. So, but
it's always good to have that cushion.
Yes. Okay.
All right, and we have a summary of the episode. The Elrics discover the horrific ingredient needed to create a Philosopher's Stone. When night falls, they prowl the grounds of a secret laboratory in search for more facts, but the brothers find only danger. And this episode covers the manga chapter 10, The Philosopher's Stone, and then just the first part of chapter 11, The Two Guardians.
We can just jump right in, and it kind of the episode starts, like, right where they left off. Like, they left Rizambul, and now they're in Central at the First Branch National Central Library to find Marco's research and figure out how you make a Philosopher's Stone. And when they get to the library with Armstrong, it has been burned down.
So sad.
They are very, very sad about it.
Yeah.
And I am also very sad about it. Cause
I know. I think the most devastating part watching it was Ed tries to pick up a book and it just crumbles to ash in his hand. It's so close yet so far.
Yeah. And then we cut to East City and we see Lust and Gluttony talking, and Lust says she burned down the library because Marco told the boys about his research, and whatever their plans are, they don't want the boys knowing about how to make a Philosopher's Stone.
She is pure evil.
Yes, she is. And during this same conversation, Lust and Gluttony are talking about killing Scar, and Gluttony is there, like, in the East City, searching for Scar using his super sniffer.
His heightened sense of smell.
Yes. And as they're talking, he smells Scar. And he wants to eat him. And Lust says that he can. He can eat every last hair.
Ew.
Yeah, that's pretty gross. And they go, you see Scar walking in the sewers, and he is no longer wearing his sunglasses thing that cover up his eyes. He's now that we've seen his red eyes, it's unnecessary to hide them, I guess.
Yeah.
And while he's in the sewer, he's attacked by Lust and Gluttony, and there's like a big explosion. And we then cut to Mustang and Hawkeye and Havoc all talking in Mustang's office, and Roy really wants to find Scar because he says it's going to look good on his resume, and for becoming Fuhrer one day. And Riza Hawkeye is like, you don't want to be too open about your ambitions, just yet. And then somebody tells them that there's been an explosion in the city, and they go to the scene and they find Scar's bloody jacket. And it's clear that he has been injured, or maybe even worse. But they don't find a body. Mm-hmm. And Mustang basically tells Havoc and his band that they have to work day and night until they find his body and prove that he's actually dead. Which I said that this was a good thing, because in movies and stories, like, it's always like the greatest downfall when the villain or the good guy just assumes the other person's dead without actually seeing the body, and then they come back and it's like, ha ha ha,
I lived.
I'm here to foil your plans.
Yes.
But Megan also had another thought about that too.
Yeah. Well, Roy is, obviously very diligent and he wants to find Scar for good reason, not only for his military goals, but also to make sure that no one gets hurt. But I really liked his quote in the manga. Havoc is kind of complaining that he's been set on this task of finding Scar and he's not, allowed to take a break till he does. And Roy says, "This is serious. Until I see his corpse, I can't even relax enough to go on another date." Playboy.
Yes, he is, or at least we think so. At the same time, we see Les and Gluttony are like hiding out in the crowd that's like observing where the explosion happened. And Les says she needs to go back to Central and update Father, which seems mysterious. Who is this Father guy? But okay.
We go from the confusion happening with whether Scar's alive or dead back to the library, or where the library was.
And Ed and Al looking over the destruction that the fire caused with Armstrong. And we have meet two new characters, Maria Ross and Denny Brosh. And they have been sent to take over the Elric security, and Armstrong sent back to Central Command. And it suggests, and I think Maria Ross suggests that they visit someone who used to work at the library to see if they can get more information on Marco's notes and whether or not they were actually at the library.
Yeah. Also, in the manga, when we first meet Ross and Brosh, it's really funny because they both mistake Al for the Full Metal Alchemist. Common error. And I think Al just he doesn't say anything, he just points to Ed, and Brosh goes, "What, the little guy over there?" And Armstrong has to hold Ed back because he's just steaming. But, they get that all sorted out, and they ride together in the car to go find somebody from the library. And in the car, Brosh looks at Al and asks, "Why are you in a suit of armor?" Ed and Al both nervously look at each other, and at the same time they say, "It's a hobby."
Yes, yeah, and then it's funny. It's you can see even though we've just met them, Ross and Brosh are good friends because they're talking in secret to each other, "What? This is a hobby? What? Who are these kids?" And whatever. So
yeah, they're kind of
they're gonna be good. Yeah, they are. They're gonna be some cool characters.
Yes.
In this story.
And perhaps I ship them, perhaps.
Perhaps you do. Just perhaps.
Just perhaps.
We make it to the ex-librarian's home, and her name is Sheska, and they knock on the door, and nobody answers, and they're like, the lights are on or whatever, she should be home. And they they go inside, and the room, or the house is just filled with books, just stacks and stacks and stacks of books. And they're calling out and be like, "Where is anybody home?" And Al hears somebody
Help me.
hears a faint sound "Somebody help me!" And they realize she's been buried alive by her books, and so they all scramble to unbury her. And she's like, "I thought I was gonna die."
That would be kind of terrifying, but
yes, it would. I think suffocating is one of the more painful ways and scary ways to go.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? Oh, yes, she has lots of books, and they don't seem to be organized, which is both me and Megan really enjoy reading, and we both have our fair share of books. Mine are very organized and aesthetically pleasing. And I don't know about Megan, but
Well, I try to keep series together, but I don't like organize the shelves alphabetically or anything.
No. Mine aren't organized alphabetically. They're organized by like colors, and then I have like little like trinkets and stuff that like match colors. It looks all nice. Anyway, we both really like to read, and we thought we would share our favorite books, which are really hard to choose, but
I dodged this question by choosing my favorite series instead.
That works. It works.
Okay, cool. So I have to say The Lunar Chronicles is my favorite series. It is a sci-fi take on classic fairy tales, but it deviates a lot from the source material in ways that you don't expect, while at the same time retaining important facts from those stories. You kind of understand if you read it. But Cinder, the main character, is like Ed. She has 2 automail prosthetics.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that series. It's one of my favorites. But my favorite book is Ella Enchanted, which is by Gail Carson Levine or Levine. Don't know how to say her last name, but it's a fairy tale based on Cinderella, but with like a twist, and I really love it because it's funny and it's not all about the romance, and it's also like kind of nostalgia because it's like the first book that I remember reading where it was like, oh my goodness, like reading is so awesome. There's like one particular scene that I especially like, when you're like watching a movie, reading a book, and like your heart like is just like going so fast, and you like need to know what happens next. Like there's a moment in there for me, and I love it. I've probably read that book like 10 times, if not more.
Yeah, and my public service announcement is the book is better than the movie. Please read the book. Don't watch the movie.
Yes. Okay, you can watch the movie. Like the movie is good.
Anne Hathaway makes it good.
Yeah, but if you like if you compare it to the book, it's nothing like the book, and the book is way better. But the movie is good on its own if you just like forget that it's based on a book.
But anyway, getting back to Sheska and her book obsession.
Yes, yeah.
She reveals that she was actually fired from her job because working at the library, she was too tempted by all the books and she would just read instead of working. So she got pink slipped and kicked out. And she feels really bad about it too because she needs money so that she can support her mom who's sick. And she says that she is more pathetic than pond scum.
Yes, that line made me laugh, so I wrote it down. And it's kind of funny. Ed doesn't seem very sympathetic. He's kind of annoyed. But he asks about Marco's work, and we find out that yes, it was at the library, which originally he was like, oh no, that means it's been destroyed. But Sheska remembers all the notes, and it's not specifically like stated in the manga. I mean, in the anime, but in the manga it says she has photographic memory, which I think is like can kind of be assumed.
Yes, I'm so jealous.
Yes,
I wish I had photographic memory.
I am both jealous and not jealous because I feel like there's things better left forgotten. Cheska says she'll rewrite all Marco's notes for them, and it cuts to them coming back 5 days later, and there's like a huge pile of notes. Al is very impressed. He's like, oh, there sure are some amazing people out there. But in the manga, it's interesting because Ed's actually the one who says that. Instead of Al. which I noticed when I was reading. I was like, but it makes sense that he says it in the anime, because later on, like, he says something else related to this line.
Yeah, Al is very, as Ed says later, pretty smooth, little brother, pretty smooth.
Yes. And we see they look at Marco's notes, and it's a cookbook, and Ross and Brosh are like, "What? This doesn't, like, this is such a waste of time. Like, these aren't notes." But Ed and Al are not discouraged, because we learn they go back to the main library, which is different from the first branch. Stop and burn down.
Yeah.
And we find out Ed tells Brosh that alchemists hide their research in coded notes. So Marco's is a recipe book, and in the manga, we don't learn this in the anime, but in the manga, we learn what Ed and Roy's notes are.
Yeah, Ed hides his note in a travelogue format, which is pretty awesome, and it makes sense for him. And Al admits that he can't even decipher Ed's notes, which Ed was like, whoa, really?
Mm-hmm.
And Roy uses women's names as his code, so those dates he keeps mentioning, I don't think they're real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Ed also pays Sheska very generously for her work. And I think, even though he doesn't say this, I think he did care about her sob story.
Yes.
And both Sheska and Ross are like, "Where'd this boy get all this money?"
Yeah.
And
well, it's also equivalent exchange, because Ed does not take without giving. He would never accept somebody's help without earning his keep, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now they're at the library. It's time for them to get to work deciphering the notes.
So,
oh, there's something else. You say your thing, and then I have
okay.
something.
All right, Brosh is helping the boys, get all set up in the library, and he asks them how they're gonna decipher the notes, because Ed had explained that alchemy notes are heavily encrypted. And, it seems like a very daunting task, but in the manga, I really like what Ed says. He says, we'll decipher it with knowledge, inspiration, patience, and good old-fashioned hard work.
Yes, I like it. Something else that I found interesting in the manga is Ed, while he's talking to Brosh, he also tells him why they're called dogs of the military, the state alchemists. And he explains that alchemists are called to work for the people, but state alchemists don't do that. They work for the government, which is supposed to be for the people, but obviously it's kind of implied that it's not. At least in Amestris. And something that I found interesting is, you said they're called to work for the people, and that kind of just reminded me, like, kind of like medical doctors who have to take, like, the Hippocratic Oath, which is basically, like, says that it's a whole long thing, and I won't read it, but it basically says that they're gonna, like, do their best to care for all people, and they're gonna, like, protect life.
I actually have read the Doctor's Creed. What you're talking about it.
I've had to read it for, like, some science class that I took.
It is pretty lengthy,
read. And also, so not only did that remind me of like the alchemist, I guess, like, creed or whatever is similar to the Hippocratic Oath, but it also, they have, alchemists have this symbol that, like, all of them wear. It looks like the, oh gosh, I can't remember how to say it. Caduceus. Yeah, it looks like the Caduceus, which is a symbol for, like, medicine and a lot of like healthcare organizations like use it today, and it's just basically a symbol of like caring for people's health, which I find interesting, like the correlations to like alchemy and then like modern medicine, I guess.
Right. I also found it interesting because I thought the alchemist symbol was interesting because you get to see it a lot on, Ed's classic red coat, but like you said, it's like the Caduceus. It's got the snake on it, like that medical symbol. It also looks like a cross, and it has a curve to it, which kind of looks like a shepherd's hook, but it kind of also looks like a question mark too, So it's like all these different things merged into one. Who can say really what it means? But everyone who looks at it will see something different.
Yeah. It's up to interpretation.
Yes, like a lot of things in the show.
Yeah, and I don't think they never explain it in the anime, and I don't know if they explain it in the manga. Maybe they do.
We'll see. Yeah.
I didn't expect them to explain like the dogs in the military, because I don't think they ever say why they're called that in the anime. Or actually, maybe they do.
They probably do, but it's
in the Amish Fallen War.
Yes,
I think they probably say it.
All right, getting back to the library.
Yes, sorry.
So the boys have been working for quite a while. And Cheska comes to visit them. She thanks Ed for all his help and says that she was able to move her mom into a better hospital. As she asks them how they're doing with their research, and the boys look very dejected and sad and depressed. And then they ask her, how's the job hunt going? And she looks very dejected and depressed. And I feel her pain because I am currently in the job hunting area of life.
Al is very sweet and kind, and kind of like a callback to like the line he said earlier that like there's like some amazing people out there. Like he tells Cheska like he's very impressed with her dedication, and he's like, dedication is a talent all on its own. And he's also like her photographic memory. Like,
well, that'll get you places.
He's awed by it. Yeah. And while they're talking, Maze Hughes arrives, and he's like, boys, why didn't you tell me you were here? And he's just being his friendly self, and he's saying like work has been really busy because all of their all their criminal records were destroyed by the fire. And there's kind of like a light bulb moment that Cheska has read those documents, and she remembers them, and she can, recreate them. And Hughes is awesome. He's like, she says like, oh, I remember them. And he's like, that's all I needed to hear, lady. You're hired. And he like drags her out of the room. And in the manga, at least it turns out like it looks like she's being kidnapped.
Yeah. It's great though because, well, she's got a job, but now she's technically a part of the military. And I think I read somewhere that she has the lowest rank, but still she gets one of the uniforms. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Ed says that Al is pretty smart because of his little comment about dedication, and Al says it was inspired by Ed, and Ed decides he needs to work harder. And then we have a little montage of the boys like reading, and then Ed sleeping and they're working hard. And after 10 days of hard work, trying to decipher the notes, Ross and Brosh are sitting outside the room like they have been this whole time, and they hear a scream, and they rush in, and the room's like a total mess, and they think that the boys have given up on their search, but they've actually cracked the code. But they are very upset because the main ingredient for Philosopher's Stone is human life.
And at the end of the manga chapter, Philosopher's Stone, they have a quote about the stone. It brings joy and sorrow, victory in battle, light to darkness, life to the dead. That is the power of the blood-red jewel, which men honor with the name the Philosopher's Stone. And it's very ominous.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I think it might just be in I have the compiled 3-in-1 volume.
Yeah, I've been reading it. I had to read it online this week, so.
Yeah, so there's extra stuff if you have the physical copies. But yeah, that obviously finding out what it takes to make a stone leaves the boys devastated because, they don't want to hurt anyone to attain their goal. And they think that everything is hopeless now. So they're in their room and, they won't, well, Al can't eat anything, but Ed refuses to eat anything and they're just trying to deal with the ramifications of what they've learned.
Armstrong tries to visit them, but the boys aren't feeling up for a visit, but then he overhears Ross and Brosh talking about like what happened and he goes up to them and like, your behavior is most suspicious, and he gets the truth out of them about what happened.
Yeah, he's a guy you wanna not mess with. So.
Yeah. And we see Ed and Al laying around in their room and discussing like what they found and how terrible it was. And Ed he says like, I'm starting to think this is God's special way of torturing people who have committed taboos. Will it always be like this? Like they're just kind of hopeless. Then Ed kind of starts to say something like, brother, there's something that I wanted to tell you for a long time. But then Armstrong like bursts into the room interrupting their discussion. And he is, also very upset about what they've discovered.
Yeah. And Ed is kind of ticked that the secret got, spilled to Armstrong, but Ross and Brosh are just like, you try saying no to this guy. But, also in the manga, when they come into the brothers' room, Ed doesn't have his coat on, and, Ross and Brosh for the first time see that Ed has automail. So, they never really act surprised in the anime. I guess they already knew, but in the manga, Brosh makes a comment like, oh, your right arm is artificial. And Ed has this weak excuse of, oh yeah, it happened back east, with the Civil War, which wasn't he like 2 when that started?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think Ross and Brosh are buying what the Elrics are selling them. But so they're really discouraged, but I don't know who says it, but somebody says something about like the truth, and Ed then remembers Marco's words from that we heard in episode 6 that searching for the truth hidden within the truth, and he thinks there may be more to the story. And so then they're looking at everybody huddles around a map of the city, and they're looking at the labs that are run by the military. There are 4 total, but Ed spots a 5th one that is closed, or says that it's closed. But he says this has got to be it because it's next to a prison, and they're using these prisoners who are being executed to research making a philosopher's stone. And this little note about this kind of reminded me of something that I was convinced of when I was a little kid. I was like, I don't know, like I almost been like 7 or 8, and like when you're watching movies, this didn't happen too much, but like when people died in them, I always was like, how did like I thought they legit died, so I was always like, how did they get people to like agree to do this? And so what I thought was that like prisoners on death row were like in these movies. And like,
no, they were just really good actors.
And like, so like when somebody died, it was like a prisoner, like and it just, I like thought that for like,
oh man,
it was a few years, and then I finally realized like, oh, it's fake. Like they're just pretending. Because then, I also went through the phase where you're just like stare at the person who's dead to like see if you can see them move.
Oh, I love kid logic.
Yes. So it was kind of like, it was a little bit of a dark thought, but I don't know. That was how I rationalized people dying in movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, anyway, this isn't like the movies. It's really happening to them. Really happening to them in this fictitious world.
Yes.
But Ed mentions that, and it makes sense that they would use the prisoners condemned for the experiments, and everyone looks at him kind of in shock and disgust. He's like, hey, I don't like talking about this, any more than you guys do, but it's just the thing that makes the most sense in this situation. And you realize just how much stuff they've got to deal with. Like, Ed and Al are so young, but they're in these situations where worst case scenarios do happen to them. But anyway.
I mean, they literally were faced with like the worst experience ever when they did their human transmutation. So it's kind of like, oh, just another Monday.
Yeah, but for them.
But also at the same time, you have to like keep a balance of like realizing like, oh, this is really terrible and we need to acknowledge it, but also like we have to keep moving forward,
Yes. But all the same, they are still kids, and Armstrong doesn't want them in any more danger than necessary. So he tells them to keep this a secret, and, don't get involved with this dangerous government stuff, and do not go to the lab to check it out for yourselves. And the boys are like, oh no, of course not, we would never! Immediately cuts to them sneaking to the lab.
Yes. And they get there, and they see that it's guarded, and they're like, well, why is it guarded if it's abandoned? So, and then they decide to sneak in, and there's like a huge concrete wall. And Ed's originally like, oh, let's just, use alchemy to get over like they usually would, but they're worried about the bright flash. So they, Al kind of sends Ed up over the wall, and then
gives him a boost.
Yep. And then Al gets over.
Well, there's barbed wire at the top of the wall, so Ed yanks it off and uses it kind of as rope to send down to Alphonse so he can climb up. And in that moment, both of them have to admit that the metal parts of their new bodies, come in handy sometimes, even if they're not totally happy with their situation.
Mm-hmm.
And they are in the enclosed wall, but they still have to get inside the building, and everything is blocked off. They can't get in until Ed sees a vent. So he pops the cover off and climbs through, but unfortunately Al is way too big to fit into the vent, and Ed's like, you're gonna have to stay behind. And poor Al's just sitting on the ground. He goes, it's not like I asked to get this big.
Yes. Very, very sweet moment. It's a very cute moment. Makes my heart melt.
Yeah, poor Al.
And then, as they're like sneaking in, we see like these two like strange creatures kind of like stirring, like sensing that there's intruders. And Ed is
shimmying through the
shimmering.
I can't. Sparkling, shimmering, splendid.
Ed, shimmying through the vent, and he's kind of talking to himself, and he's like, "Oh, good thing that I am such a pipsqueak, because a normal person like wouldn't be able to get through this tight spot." And he like immediately regrets it. He's like, "Oh, I call myself a
tiny little pipsqueak."
Yes. It's kind of funny because in the manga he like doesn't even get the word out. Like he starts to say small, and then he like immediately stops himself. Yeah.
He says, it's a good thing I'm so smooth. and then he just like holds his head in agony at what he almost said.
Yes. And then we see Al waiting outside, and someone jumps from the roof to attack him.
And scene.
That's where the episode ends. Yes.
It's a cliffhanger.
All right. Yes. Yeah. What's gonna happen next?
Don't know. Actually, I do. But getting into voice actor notes, we have a few because we have some new characters introduced. So we've got Denny Brosh, who's played by Jim Foronda, who has also been in My Hero Academia. He played Muscular. Janempa from Dragon Ball, and Lobov from Attack on Titan. You're gonna have to tell me if I said that right, because I don't watch that show as of yet.
I don't
probably
remember
dead.
that character. I would like, yeah, he's probably, or they're probably dead, and I would need to see pictures of them to know who they were.
Maria Ross is played by Meredith McCoy. She was Kagura Soma from the 2001 Fruits Basket, Android 18 from Dragon Ball, and Sasuke from Yu Yu Hakusho. And Sheska, love this girl, played by Gwendolyn Lau, who's Kuroko Sato from Yu Yu Hakusho, Honey Girl from Ouran High School Host Club, and Daphne from Fairy Tail. And all of these characters, I like all of them. I just, they're very fun and sweet.
Yeah, I love the dynamic between Denny and Maria. Like they're just like two pals.
Yeah.
They seem to be really good friends. And then Sheska, we love her. She loves books, so she's got a special place.
I think when we first watched this show, we were both like, did they put me in this anime? But
yes, exactly.
But anyway, the meaning behind their names. So Denny, his name is of English origin, and it means devotee of Dionysus. For those of you who don't know or who have not read Percy Jackson, Dionysus is the Greek god of wine, merriment, and theater. Maria, her name is of Latin origin, and it means of the sea. And Sheska, it was hard to find a name meaning for her, but what I Googled was, it means mankind, great love, or optimistic. I think that fits her pretty well, optimistic anyways.
Yeah.
And great love, love books.
She's very, her emotions are up and down. She's really happy and then like very sad, like
I don't know. Moment. Even in her sad moments, she was able to dig herself out of it, to help the boys.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And we also have a little theory about Sheska, that she is the mangaka's self-insert because, well, I don't know. She seems like just such a quirky character to introduce randomly. And also Sheska has these glasses that she wears that, the mangaka, when she draws herself, she draws herself as a little cow chibi persona, but she's wearing the same glasses. So I was thinking, oh, maybe there's a connection here, or else she just likes those glasses.
And, like,
I don't know.
In the little like comics that the mangaka is like puts herself in, same energy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I feel like it.
Right. Yeah, animation in this episode. There are a lot of chibi, funny and quirky animations, infusing humor to an episode that has a really dark and heavy undertone to it.
Speaking of the dark and heavy undertone, why do I talk about the? I feel like I talk about the depressing things. Okay. In this episode, we learn that live humans are required to make a Philosopher's Stone. And like the government is actively we don't know this yet, or we don't know if this is true or not. But it seems like the government is supporting this research. using live humans to make Philosopher's Stones, or to figure out how to do that. And this just brings up an interesting point, I guess, about thinking about like what we are using. Brings up kind of a discussion that we, I think, had a little bit earlier about like ethics in research. And because here we learn that the Philosopher's Stone requires human life to make it, and so it kind of brings up the question of the balance between what resources we use for the scientific advances that we want to make. Because obviously doing harmful research on live humans is not allowed and very dangerous. And even though sometimes it can maybe be tempting to be like, oh, if we just could do this one experiment on this person, then it would answer all our questions. But no, you can't do that, because it could seriously hurt someone. And like, just kind of like what this whole show is about, like what could equal the value of a human soul or a human life.
Yeah.
So that's something in research that often thinking about is, what's the best way to answer this research question without, hurting anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Just food for thought, I guess. I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Think about it.
Yeah, something to think about. And I think that we as the show goes on, we get more and more into that.
Yes.
Into that question.
Yes.
Something else that not scientific but more philosophical that comes up is Ed's little quote where he says that he thinks he is being punished by God.
Yes. I think in the manga he says God really has it out for us sinners, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And, well, this is sort of an age-old question, but the why do bad things happen to good people question. And that's not necessarily what Ed is asking, because he knows that he and Al messed up. If it is punishment, there's a reason. But that's if it's punishment. You can't say that for sure, because the actions you take, and the choices that you make in life do have consequences. He and Al made a choice to do something taboo, and they were reaping the rewards of it when Al lost his body and Ed lost his limbs. But everything that happens to them from now on, you can't say that's directly connected to the mistake that they made. They wouldn't be on this path without that mistake, but at the same time, they're trying to make better choices. So to say that things are hopeless and this one sin is inerasable, I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, I would agree. And I also would add that, like, two things. One, the fact that the Philosopher's Stone is made from human life, they didn't do that. That's not like, they had nothing to do with that. And even though that's disappointing to find out, they also, like, even though they're, originally kind of disheartened and like, where do we go from here? Like, they immediately, very quickly, like, as soon as Armstrong comes in the room and, like, they start chatting, like, there's more to it. And, like,
yes,
it's not hopeless.
Just take some good old-fashioned hard work.
Yes. And I would agree that I would agree with myself that no situation is completely hopeless.
All right. Story elements analysis. There's a lot of rising action in this episode. And I'll be honest, this is the first episode that really got me hooked on the show. Because before I wasn't hating it by any means, and I was enjoying watching it. I just had a bad taste in my mouth from the Nina episode. But this was the first episode where I was like, I really want to see what happens next. I really like this. Let's keep going, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had a similar feeling about this episode, but my episode where I knew I was gonna really like this show, and really want to know what happened next comes later on. And you know which one I'm talking about because I talk about it every day.
Well, I feel like you were already hooked on the show, but when you became fully invested and we were like, this is gonna be one of my favorites, that is the episode
Yes. Yeah. Talk about it then. Yes. All right. That is the end of our analysis.
Yeah.
And now we can get into our outros stuff. So the favorite line of episode.
Yeah.
Megan,
mine was from Sheska. The only thing I can do well is read.
That would have been funny if you would have messed that up. Okay.
Can't read.
All right. And my favorite line is from Ed, and he says, we try to grasp the truth, but it always slips away, and now that we finally have caught it, it turns out the truth is too dangerous to hold.
Yeah. So, what did we learn, or what was the moral of the episode, or the theme throughout?
The truth within the truth. Don't give up hope. Dig a little deeper. There, no situation is completely hopeless. So, who pushed the story forward in the episode?
Dr. Marco, because, they were looking for his notes. And Sheska, because she came in clutch and helped them find the cookbook that had the key to the Philosopher's Stone recipe.
Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. This one I would say definitely got me interested and be like, whoa, this is gonna be like more serious.
Yeah.
Than I thought.
Yeah.
And that's it. For the episode. Also, I don't know if we mentioned this in other episodes, previous episodes, but it's probably, if you're following us on Instagram, it's probably already obvious, but we're going to be releasing episodes every Tuesday. So yeah, look for that. And also, if you enjoy our discussions, please give us a review if you can. It really helps other people find the show. And if we do get some reviews, we will be sure to read them at the beginning of the episodes.
As any emails or Instagram messages.
Yes. Yeah. You can email us or DM us on Instagram with any questions or comments, or also if you just have memes or cool art, feel free to send it to us. And that's Full Metal Beyond the Gate at gmail.com, or on Instagram it's just at Full Metal Beyond the Gate.
Yes. And if I could make a request for a specific, maybe not question, but statement, I want to know if there are any who prefer the original FMA to Brotherhood. And if so, give me a lengthy email. I want to have an intense deliberation and debate about that subject.
Yes. We have seen the original, and we definitely prefer movies. Brotherhood, and have had extensive discussions about why Brotherhood is better. So if
not
you
to
have
say the original isn't good.
It has its merits, but
yes.
All right, we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Woo!
All right.
Bye.
Bye.